is changing, a trend line that currently favours the Democrats. Nick Bryant, BBC News, Houston.
Well, let's take a closer look now at voter turnout. Let's speak to Democratic pollster and co-founder of Hit Strategies, Roshni Nedungadi. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's deal with that issue of early voting. What difference, if any, do you think that makes to the groups of people coming out to vote?
Well, we have Joe Biden is seeing a huge advantage right now in people who are going out to early vote. We're seeing younger voters, people of color, women, white women in suburbs going out to early vote right now all around the country. And all of these groups of people are favoring Joe Biden in their polling. We recently conducted a poll of Black voters nationwide, and 43% had already voted. And of those people who had already voted, 88% said that they would support Joe Biden versus only 3% who said they would support Donald Trump.
The interesting thing, I suppose, the interesting question, perhaps unknowable, is are these voters who would have voted on the day anyway, or are they new extra voters who wouldn't have voted on the day so could actually make a significant difference?
Yeah, that's a question that I'm not sure we'll quite know the answer to, but what we do know is we're seeing large groups of new voters who didn't vote in 2016. About 25% of voters who have already voted in both Florida and Arizona, or at Florida and North Carolina, are voters who did not show up to vote in 2016. And almost a third of voters who have already voted in Arizona were voters who did not show up to vote in 2016. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, and despite the pandemic, despite Trump and Republicans trying to suppress the votes of all of the minority communities, as your last segment mentioned, we're seeing really big turnout among these voters.
Well, let's focus on young voters, because traditionally, obviously, everyone wants young voters, and traditionally, young voters just don't vote. Do you think this is a significant change this time?
I think there is a significant change this time, and we're already seeing increased turnout among young voters who traditionally don't actually vote early or vote by mail. Young voters tend to be more likely to vote on Election Day. But as it stands now, we're already seeing an increased share of young voters in the existing electorate. So in 2016, they were about 9% of voters. Right now, at the same time as today, right now, they're about 11% of voters. So they're increasing their share of the electorate already.
OK, let's move on to this idea of voter suppression. You mentioned it just there, and we saw, obviously, bits of it there in Nick Bryant's report. How significant do you think it is?
I think that's yet to be seen, but we do know that states like Texas, states like Florida have been trying to suppress the vote of minority communities, of young voters, and it doesn't seem to be working. Texas is on par either tomorrow or the day after to hit 100% of their total vote from 2016. So there are huge numbers of voters going out already, despite all the barriers that are being put in place. And in fact, while we see confidence among Democratic groups like people of color and young voters in vote by mail, more confidence in how to vote by mail and how to vote early, we're seeing less confidence among Republican voters and Trump supporters in voting methods like vote by mail and early vote. So we might actually be suppressing the votes of Trump supporters with all of the policies that they've put in place.
Fascinating. Roshni, thank you so much for coming on. Great to get your thoughts. That's Roshni Nedungadi. Thank you.